So, hello, it is time for a little Technique Tuesday where I like to share a little bit of a tutorial, a how-to. I try to keep these videos super short and simple so that you can go to the video that you need for the specific technique or tutorial or what have you, and not worry about doing a whole lot of flipping through, rewinding, stopping, and pausing. So, if you don't know who I am, I'm Aradia Noire. I am the resident witch and creatrix over at Aradia's Hand and Danaeus Divine, where I create myth, magic, and meaning for your everyday life. And I'm doing a special segment of videos that are all short tutorials for my YouTube channel. They're all focused right now on art. If I do any other types of videos, then they will likely be hosted on my other channel, and I will be sure to link that below. So, as you can see, I've got a needle. I decided to use a double-pointed needle. Whenever I'm just kind of whipping things together, that's one of the needles that I prefer to use. I've got some yarn, and I've actually already got a cast on started. Trying to get it to focus. There we go. All right. So, one thing you'll notice about this is this tail is a little short, and I actually did that on purpose because I'd like to discuss with you what to do when maybe you don't perform your cast on quite perfectly, or you run into this problem where you're basically playing chicken with the end of your yarn tail. And while this is totally possible and fine to use if you want to, a lot of people suggest use a longer tail. I personally don't ever do that because I don't wanna, and you can't make me. But when it comes to weaving in the ends, it is so much easier if you have more than less. So, at your discretion. So the technique I'm talking about today is the long tail cast on. It is one of the easiest cast ons to start with, and a cast on that I feel a lot of people, this is where they start. This is where I started, and this is my go-to unless my pattern requires me to use another cast on. And you'll see other cast on videos. Right now, this is the first cast on video that I've got up, so at the current moment, there's only going to be this one, but as I record more cast on videos, I'll update the description box and link to those videos if you would like to see them, and I'll try to link to everything and all the other cast on videos, so they're related. And the reason you would use this, other than, well, you've got to get you got to get stitches on the needles, is it's easy. I think it might take a little bit of dexterity if you're not used to using both hands, and if you're a new knitter, but all in all, I don't find it to be difficult, and I didn't have any trouble starting with it myself. And so what you'll need, like I said, is you'll need a knitting needle too. Again, you don't have to use double pointeds. You can use fixed circulars, you can use interchangeables, you can use straights that have the stopper on the end. You know, for the purposes of this tutorial, I just grabbed these. These are 8-inch double pointed bamboo needles. And you know what your needles are made of, and the exact length of the needles is irrelevant. It is really your preference and what works for the project you're doing. A lot of people do favor wood, a lot of people favor metal, and a lot of people favor the acrylic or kind of plastic. So, you know, try them all out, see what works for you. What I will say for wood is it's a bit springier, and it warms to your hands a lot easier than metal does. It's very forgiving that way and can be a bit gentler on your hands, as well as the stickiness of the wood, which, you know, when you glide your hands over it, it doesn't feel like it's sticky at all. But wood has a tendency to work well with yarns that are slicker and smoother and keep them from just falling off the needles, unlike metal where there's almost no friction, and if you were to tip your needle, your stitches quite literally could just fall off, because it's so very slick. And so there's different reasons to use different needles, types. Hold on one second. Sorry about that. And then, of course, you know, does the needle match your yarn? This is a kitchen cotton. It is Lily's Sugar and Cream. The color is Tea Rose. And it's kind of this nice peachy pink color. And so without further ado, as you can see, I've got 10 stitches on the needle, and I've got a tail that's maybe 1.5 inches long, not terribly long. Now again, I could continue on with this, use this, it would be fine, it would work, but when it goes to finishing whatever this became, the short tail would make that a little more difficult. So and when you're getting the hang of a long tail and you're not sure exactly how much of a tail you need to give yourself, it's easy to underestimate. It's also easy to overestimate. There's not an exact science. I've heard people suggest, oh, you know, if you want it to be X amount of inches, then you need to measure out X more inches than the cast on is supposed to be. And I gotta tell you, when I'm trying to cast on, I'm not trying to do all these extra measurements. So I just kind of wing it and hope for the best. So we've seen, oh wow, I've got my 10 stitches. This is not enough tail. So we're gonna slip all these off. I know that can be terrifying to some people. And so, and this is my little trick. So I stop at the slip knot, and this is how much tail I had. So I found that, you know, this is about what was left over, and that wasn't enough. So usually that means I take this and I go, you know, maybe double that, what was left over, and add that on, or whatever I feel like it. Pop that off, and then we'll start over. And don't worry, we're going to do a video on slip knots, because if you've never made a slip knot, there's no reason for you to know how to do it. So when you start out with a long tail, you only have one needle in your hand. You've got your tail, and this is your working yarn, and it leads to the ball. And this is how I do it. So we've got both strands are leading into my hand. My index finger is holding the working yarn away, and my thumb is holding the tail yarn in the opposite direction. And this is to provide tension, and so you know, make sure you get the right ones. So when you do this, you will slide your thumb up and take this, what is basically a loop, and then draw it up. Go on the other side, right, over the top, and slide that over, and then you've made a stitch. Now, because the slip knot was already there, the slip knot forms the first stitch. There are occasions where there are other cast-ons where you won't do that, where you won't count the stitch, because you'll basically make a false knot. And part of that is because it does sometimes give a noticeable bump. And so there you go. So we're going to do this again, and we're going to cast on 10 stitches, which means we're going to add 8 more at this point. So this way and that way. We go below the thumb and up, over the index finger yarn and down, slip that over, up, over, through, up, down, through. And I'll often take the time to stop and count. So I've got 2, 4, 6, 7. I got 3 more. So up, up, down and through, up, down and through. Again, we got 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, and then the last one is, okay, slow again. Turn your hands, go up, and then turn your hands back, and down, and this loop that you've made. So now you've got your 10 stitches, and you see now we've got a good bit longer a tail to work on. So like I said, you can get really generous, and it's really easy to overestimate. If you find that this tail is too long and you want more of it, then you can go back, start over, right? Start with your slip knot and then move the slip knot over a little bit further towards the end of the tail. If you're fine with this length, you can start with this and keep going. And of course, remember, the length of your tail really is irrelevant as long as you have enough to weave in, because you're going to weave it in and you're going to cut it and it's not going to matter anymore. So there you go. So I hope you enjoyed this video and that was informative. If there was any part that wasn't clear, if you have questions, or if there's other cast-ons that you would like to see, please let me know. I'm going to be doing several more videos covering some very basic knitting techniques, and look forward to seeing all of those, and have a good day.